Sexual harassment. In this video, we'll discuss sexual harassment definitions, types of sexual harassment, behaviors associated with sexual harassment, effects of sexual harassment, and sexual harassment prevention strategies. Sexual harassment definition: unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature constitutes sexual harassment. To meet this definition, the following applies. Submission to such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of an individual's employment. Submission to or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used as the basis for employment decisions affecting such individual, or such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working environment. Sexual harassment: a form of sex discrimination that involves unwelcome sexual advances, requests for physical sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. The definition emphasizes that workplace conduct to be actionable as abusive work environment need not result in concrete psychological harm to the victim, but need only be so severe or pervasive that a reasonable person would perceive, and the victim does perceive, the work environment as hostile or offensive. Any individual in a supervisory position who uses or condones any form of sexual behavior to control, influence, or affect the career, pay, or job of an employee is engaging in sexual harassment. Similarly, any employee who makes deliberate or repeated unwelcome verbal comments, gestures, or physical contact of a sexual nature in the workplace is also engaging in sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is different than sexual assault. Sexual assault: intentional sexual contact characterized by the use of force, threats, intimidation, or abuse of authority, or when the victim does not or cannot consent. The term sexual assault includes a broad category of sexual offenses consisting of the following specific offenses: rape, sexual assault, aggravated sexual contact, abusive sexual contact, forcible sodomy, or attempts to commit these offenses. As a general rule, there are two types of sexual harassment: those acts that involve a consideration, also known as quid pro quo, and those acts that are classified as falling into a hostile environment. An example of quid pro quo is a person in a position of authority or power pressures subordinates for dates, makes sexual advances, or requests sexual favors in return for a favorable personal action or reward. The victim is usually a person who feels she or he must respond to the sexual advance in order to gain something in return. It is important to note that it is not necessary for the victim to respond or act upon the sexual advance for the sexual harassment offense to be considered quid pro quo. Examples of a hostile environment sexual harassment include unwelcome touching, leering, sexually oriented jokes or cartoons, sexually oriented comments or epitaphs, pornographic posters, or sexually explicit electronic correspondence. These behaviors need only be so severe or pervasive that a reasonable person would perceive, and the victim does perceive, the work environment as hostile or offensive. Sexual harassment behaviors fall into three categories: verbal, nonverbal, and physical. Verbal sexual harassment: turning work discussions into sexual topics, sexual connotations or innuendos while referring to someone as honey, baby, hunk, stud, darling, etc. Telling lies or spreading rumors about a person's sex life, telling jokes or stories and making comments with sexual connotations, making sexual comments about a person's clothing, body, or sexual activities, asking questions about a person's sex life, fantasies, preferences, or history, whistling or making catcalls at someone. Nonverbal sexual harassment: paying unwanted attention to someone by ogling or staring at their body, displaying sexually suggestive visuals, items depicting sexual parts of the body, sexually oriented entertainment at work or officially sanctioned functions, sexually suggestive gestures with hands or through body movements, emails, text messages, or any type of electronic communication that is sexual in nature. Physical sexual harassment. Hanging around, standing close to, or brushing against a person. Touching a person's clothing, hair, or body. Hugging, kissing, patting, or stroking. Touching, pinching, bumping, or cornering. Blocking a passageway. Individual effects of sexual harassment. Studies have shown that some of the negative job ramifications for victims of sexual harassment include decreased job satisfaction, declines in job performance, decreased motivation, interrupted careers, decreased morale, increased absenteeism, lowered productivity, health and family issues, and impaired relationships between coworkers. Some of the organizational effects of sexual harassment resemble individual effects and include lower productivity, damaged reputation, emotional factors, and organizational withdrawal. Economic effects of sexual harassment. The cost includes things such as lost time, lost productivity, decreased in morale and cohesion, patient care, medical treatment, family impacts, suicide, etc. Proactive strategies. The best approach will be positive and oriented towards addressing the issue or concern. Sexual harassment programs should be direct and not overly threatening, and should include everyone. Using social media for passing on information concerning prevention of sexual harassment, conducting sexual harassment prevention trainings, conducting employee climate assessments, address and challenge questionable behavior before it escalates. Reactive strategies. Direct approach. Confront the harasser, outline the behavior, and request that it stop immediately. Indirect approach. Write a letter or email. Third-party approach. Ask a coworker or friend to intervene on your behalf. Report harassment to your supervisor or manager. Or file a complaint or grievance through your EO/EEO office.